This is a comprehensive in-depth guide for developing C41 Color Negative Film at home. Here's the chapters and their corresponding timestamps so you can click around and follow along. There's a complete supply list of what I use with affiliate links in the description below. And you can download a free PDF cheat sheet at madebylopro.com. But before we get started, I gotta warn you, this isn't a normal tutorial. Now, don't be afraid. Everyone talks about how hard it is to develop color film, but that's how I started. I developed my own color film at home like a bazillion times before ever touching black and white. Here's some scans from a few of the first rolls me and Sarah ever shot. And if some wacky analog brain rot nut job like me can do it, then so can you. Anyway, here's all the stuff you're gonna need to get started. Pause here for reference or go down in the description below for a supply list with affiliate links. Okay, step one, you gotta get the film out of this thing. You can use an old-timey can opener to pry the rim off, but that brute force mangles the canister, and I like to reuse those spent cans to refill with different films that I buy in bulk. So how do I get it out without destroying the can? Well, that's what this doohickey is for. This is a film leader retriever, and it does exactly that, retrieves the film leader. And here's how it works. First, locate the slit on your exposed film and stick your tip in. Next, push up slide A and twist your knob till it clicks. Now back it up a bit and push in slide B. Give it a yank and... Okay, film leader retrieved. Now this can take a few tries and it's kind of finicky depending on what kind of film leader you have. It works eventually, I swear. But don't go yanking the whole roll out of the can just yet, because that will ruin your film. So go ahead and grab your scissors, snip your tip, and round off the corners like so. Beautiful. Now it's time for step 2, loading your film in this thing. This is a Paterson tank. It lets you pour chemicals in, but keeps light out. Here's the main shell. It comes in a number of different sizes to develop up to 8 rolls of 35mm at a time. I use the little stubby OG ones that hold 2 rolls, and I also got one of the long boys that hold 3. Next up, you got the reels, or spools, or spirals, or whatever the fuck you want to call them. These are what actually holds your film in the tank. Then you got this tube thingy that you insert like so. Next up is this funnel looking thingy. This is the main piece that keeps light out. And it's vital that you make sure to twist it on firmly until you hear a click. Then you got this secondary lid that a lot of people complain about, but they're just crybabies. Everyone says it leaks too much, but mine works fine. And I don't even use this thing for color development. I'll explain why later. And finally, we got a little tube thingy. This is the agitator. But I just call it
my little twiddle stick.
Okay, so that's the Paterson tank. But how does it work? Well, like I said, these white spiral thingies hold your film, so you have to wrap your film around them. But you have to do that in complete darkness. Otherwise, you will ruin your film. So, you gotta use one of these things. This is a dark bag. The way it works is you put all the stuff you're gonna need in the bag, zip it up, stick your arms in, and you got all the room you need to futz around with your film without it getting ruined by light. Now, since you're working blind, I like to lay everything out like so, with the tank to my left, the reels in the middle, and to my right, I use the lid as a little tray for my exposed film and my scissors. That way, I know where everything is without having to pull one of these maneuvers. Okay,
let's get loaded.
Grab your exposed film and pull out a bit of slack. Next, grab a reel and feel around for these little nips. Make sure they're lined up like so and not all cattywampus like this. Now grab your film and stick your tip in right under them feeder nips. Then you want to grab your floppy roll and yank it around the backside. Now tug on your cans again for a bit more slack and start twisting your reel back and forth like so. Each twist is ratcheting your film around the spiral, so keep doing that until your cans bang up against the reel. Then just keep on tugging on your roll and twisting back and forth again and again until you just can't tug any more out of it. Now grab your scissors and, using your fingers as a guide, cut the film while leaving enough sticking out of the can so you can reuse it, but not so much that you're cutting into the final photo. Ask me how I know. Pro tip, get yourself a short little stubby pair of scissors like these. It's a lot easier maneuvering something tiny like these opposed to some big old kitchen shears, especially when you can't see what you're doing. Plus, since they're tiny, I can put my fingers on the tips of the cutters like this, so I can feel what I'm doing and I make sure I'm only cutting what I mean to cut. Anyway, after snipping your film, just keep on twisting back and forth until the loose end that you just cut is sucked up all the way safely within the reel. Double check your work by feeling around those feeder nips again. It should feel all contained within the spiral, with nothing flopping around willy-nilly. Then, all you gotta do is insert the big tube like so, drop her in the tank, and secure it by twisting the funnel lid until you hear a click. Again, double check your work, making sure that the funnel lid is securely clicked in place. Cause if this thing pops off with the lights on, you will ruin your film.
Ask me how I know.
And there you have it. All your films safe and sound in a light, tight Paterson tank. Finally, I like to slap on the floppy lid just to be safe. And we have successfully loaded our film.
Loaded.
But before we can just go ahead and dump some chemicals in there,
We gotta get them ready.
So step 3. Mixing your chemicals. Now, for chemicals, there's tons of options out there. I usually use CineStill's CS41 Powder Kit, but at the time of writing this, I had just bought the last available bag of this stuff directly from CineStill, and it's out of stock everywhere else, unless you want to pay way too much money on Amazon. Well, I could stock up on the liquid kit instead of the powder, but since the liquid is already
Wet.
it doesn't have as long of a shelf life, which I guess wouldn't matter if you planned on getting and using just one kit at a time. But I like to stock up on as much of this stuff as possible in case the
Globalist cabal of Hollywood elite lizard people finally take over, enslave the human race, and shut down CineStill.
Ain't nobody gonna stop me from developing my trash can bangers. Get your trash can shaped film capsules at madebylopro.com. Anyway, let's rip open the bag and see what's inside. More bags. Plus the instructions, which you won't need. I mean, that's why you're watching this video, right? So we got 3 shiny baggies. And lucky for us idiots, these baggies are idiot proofed with color coordinated labels and numbers. The color developer in a fashionable red and 2 blue baggies marked bleach and fix part A and B. There's only 2 colors because this is a 2-bath process, developer and blix.
But what's Blix?
Well, professional labs have a separate solution for bleach and fix, making it a 3-bath process. But CineStill doesn't trust us to count to 3, so instead of bleach and fix, we get blix. Okay, so there's 3 bags, but only 2 baths. That means this one gets mixed up on its own, and these 2 get mixed together. But before we do that, let's get all set up. Here's my workstation. I got a dollar store dish pan full of tap water and the cheapest sous vide off Amazon, keeping the water at about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're following along, I know that's way hotter than the instructions recommend. I'll explain why in a sec. Anyway, I use that gross tap water to heat up these 2 deli container thingies, each holding about 1 liter of distilled water. If you got good tap water, you can probably skip the whole distilled water thing, but our tap water is pretty gross. Here's what our kettle looks like. I don't want that on my film. Anyway, use a thermometer and make sure your good water is at least like 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Beautiful. Now, if this is your first time mixing up your own chemicals, you'll probably have a couple of clean 1-liter bottles ready to hold your developer and your blix. But these chemicals don't last forever. Stick around if you want to know how to keep your chems going longer. Anyway, once your developer is exhausted, you gotta mix up new C41 chems. And you can't just pour your old chems down the drain. Well, I mean, you can if you hate nature. So what I do is I pour my old tired chems into empty jugs for proper disposal at a later date. But what do with old chemicals? Well, back when I lived in civilization, I would just drop off my old chemicals at the Indian River County Recycling Center. But now that I live out in the sticks, I just have this ever-expanding graveyard of toxic waste living next to my mini fridge. That's a problem for future Nick. Anyway, now that our 1-liter bottles are empty, now's the perfect opportunity to rinse them out and scrub off all this crud that builds up around the rim of the blix. I mean, don't worry if your bottles don't get super squeaky clean. I gave up after like a minute or so. Okay, it's finally time to mix up some chemicals. First, grab yourself some nerdy beaker thing with measurement lines up to 1 liter and something to stir it up with. I use this funny looking spoon thingy. Now grab your warm distilled water and pour in about 650 milliliters. Then get the red baggie with the color developer powder and rip her open. Next, I just kind of carefully shake the bag over the beaker while stirring with my big ol' spoon.
My spoon is too big. My anus is bleeding.
And don't freak out if your powder clumps up around the rim like mine did. Just keep on stirring until most of the powder is dissolved, then pour in more of that distilled water to bring the whole solution up to 1 liter. Finally, use a funnel to pour your developer into your storage bottle while aiming the stream at them clumps to wash them down into the rest of the mixture. Now cap her off and put her back in the water bath. Okay, 1 down, but before we start mixing up the blix, now would be the perfect time to go ahead and reduce the temperature on the sous vide down to 102 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the temperature you want your chemicals at for when it's finally time to start developing your film. Well, why not just start off at 102? Well, since it takes a minute to mix up the chemicals and get them back in the heated water bath, I like to crank up the sous vide to 110 degrees at the get-go. That way, since I started off 8 degrees higher, by the time I'm done futzing around and mixing them up, the chemicals haven't cooled down too much below 102. Okay, time for the blix. If you're gonna use the same gear, make sure to rinse your junk that just had developer all over it. Then, once again, measure out like 650 milliliters of warm distilled water. Now, open up the blue baggie that has the number 2 on it, because this is our second bag. Told you it's idiot-proof. Anyway, make sure it says Bleach and Fix Part A. rip her open, and try to stir the water as you gradually pour in the powder. And I know it can be kind of a bitch to stir and pour at the same time, so don't worry if you gotta put down your spoon to get the last of the powder out of the bag with one of these moves that I learned in college. Now keep on stirring until it looks like most of the powder is dissolved in the water. Now it's time for baggie number 3. Ha ha ha. This is Bleach and Fix Part B, which should be our final bag unless you really fucked up somehow. Anywho, this is the fun part. Rip her open and just like before, try to keep stirring as you carefully pour the powder in. And check it out! It starts fizzing up like Dr. Pepper. The instructions call this an endothermic reaction, which, I don't know. Thanks, nerd. Okay, so we're almost done. Just keep on stirring for a bit, then add more distilled water to bring the Blix up to 1 liter. Then use your funnel to pour it into the storage bottle, cap it off, put it in the water bath, and congratulations! You have successfully mixed up your own C41 chemicals.
You know what that means. We're finally ready!
Step 4. Actually doing the dang thing. First off, grab your thermometer and check your developer. You should be at 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't worry about the Blix temperature. That doesn't have to be as precise. Okay, we're up to temp, but before we start pouring chemicals all willy-nilly, we need a way to keep track of time so we know when to pour them back out again. Now you could just use your phone timer, but grabbing your phone with your sopping wet hands to reset your timer after each step sounds like a nightmare. So I use this. The massive dev chart. I know I'm still using my phone, but instead of having to dial in a new timer after each step, you can easily pre-program in custom timings beforehand. So when you're in the thick of it, pouring chemicals in and out, all you gotta do is hit start again and you're off to the races. And it even reminds you when to agitate. Anyway, let's do this thing. Grab your Paterson tank, peel off that first lid, and pour in some water? Yeah, before I pour in the developer, I like to do a little pre-soak with regular degular water that's heated up to the same temperature of 102 degrees. Once the tank's full, I start my timer and put the whole thing in the water bath to let the film get up to temp. Now, a lot of people skip the pre-soak, but after a minute in the tank, the water comes out looking like this. Is that bad? I don't know. That's for the brainiacs on Reddit to fight over. After the pre-soak, it's developing time. So, pour the dev in the tank, start your timer, and put your tank back in the water bath to keep it at a consistent 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if you're using a stubby little tank that can't hold an entire liter of developer, that means you got a half-full bottle of developer that's not gonna sit up straight in your water bath because buoyancy. So if you're planning on developing several batches in a row, that means half your chemicals are now cooling down on the counter and you're gonna have to warm them up again before round number 2. Pro tip, to keep all my developer warm, I scoot the Blix bottle forward like so and tuck in the dev bottle to keep it from tumbling around in the bath. Anyway, once the clock hits 30 seconds, it's agitation time.
Agitation time.
Agita. Agita? What's agitation? Well, if you didn't know, film developer is lazy. Leave it alone for a minute and it gets exhausted. So agitation is when you shake the film around to wake it up again and put the developer back to work. Now the instructions recommend inverting the tank 4 times every 30 seconds. And that is how I agitate my black and white film, which doesn't need a heated water bath. But grabbing a sopping wet tank and shaking it around is annoying. So instead, I use my little twiddle stick. Using my patented LoPresti Film Genius technique, I grab the rim of the tank with my left hand, the twiddle stick with my right, and 4 times in quick succession I spin them in opposite directions to maximize circumferential agitational efficiencies. Take that, Reddit. After the final agitation, I grab the storage bottle, plop in a funnel, and once the timer goes off, I pour it all back in. Okay, now just like with the dev, grab your Blix, pour it in the tank, start your timer, and put it back in the water bath to keep it up to temp. Now the Blix step is the worst. You gotta babysit the tank for like 8 minutes and agitate every 30 seconds. You're just stuck in the kitchen staring at a timer for what feels like an eternity, all alone with your thoughts, taunting you.
Why don't you just shoot digital? You really think you can make a living on YouTube? You're 35 living at your mom's house. You're just a failure.
Pro tip, to silence the voices in your head, put on some tunes, crack open a cold one, and just rock out, baby. Let's make analog fun again. And don't freak out if you're having a bit too much fun and forget to agitate here and there. This ain't rocket science. Anyway, just like before, after your final agitation, get your storage bottle and your funnel all set up. After your timer goes off, pour it back in the bottle and put the bottle back in the water bath if you're doing another load after this one. Now, at this step, you could open it up and take a look, but that's bad juju. So now it's washing time. Just fill and empty your tank at least 7 times with some warm tap water. I like to do this little swishy move where I'm sloshing the water around the tank as it fills up. And after dumping your load 7 times, you're ready
For the final rinse.
With photo flow.
It's just fancy film soap. It helps your film dry without watermarks. Now, some people go through all the trouble of measuring out 1 part photo flow to 200 parts distilled water, but that's lame. I just prick a teensy little pinhole in the cap, dribble a little dabble dooya, and pour in just enough distilled water to submerge all the film. Pro tip, if I got a couple of rolls in there, I like to take one of them out of the tank for this step. Because if I wash one roll at a time, reusing the same photo flow water, I'm cutting my distilled water waste in half. Anyway, after agitating the film in the photo flow for 30 seconds, I violently shake off all them suds, and would you look at that? We got frame lines. Look at all these dang pictures. I don't know when we took these pictures, because it's been taking me a while to do this script, so I'm sure I'll put in some voiceover thing about how these pictures are awesome and I'm an amazing photographer, and so is Sarah. Wait, don't click away yet. I'm about to explain how to calculate for additional development times as your chemicals get exhausted. But if you hate math, you'll love the cheat sheet I have for free at madebylopro.com. It gives all the timings you'll need for up to your 30th roll of film. And while you're there, consider using promo code PHOTOFLOW for 10% off any order of stickers or trash can banger film capsules. Okay, let's bring it on home. So this here C41 chemical kit from CineStill only recommends you reuse the developer for up to a measly 8 rolls of film. At $3.75 per roll, that's still a lot better than sending it off to a lab, but
It's all a scam.
you can process way more than 8 rolls of film. CineStill just wants you to buy more chemicals. I developed 28 rolls of film with my last batch before mixing up new chemicals. That's just a little over $1 per roll.
But
There's a catch. Let me explain. After the 8 roll limit, you just gotta develop your next roll a little bit longer, 2% longer.
warning!
I'm about to do math. So if you want a shortcut, just add 4 seconds per roll after roll number 8. Okay, now back to the nerd shit. For example, say I already developed 12 rolls of film, which I would know because I keep track of that on the bottles themselves with these tally marks. So if I'm 12 rolls deep and the standard development time is 3.5 minutes, how long should I cook the 13th roll? My rule of thumb is to add 2% for every roll after roll number 8. And 13 minus 8 is 5, so we're adding 2% 5 times, which is 10%. So starting at 3.5 minutes, to add 10%, I multiply 3.5 by 1.1 because math. That gives us 3.85 minutes.
Beautiful.
We got 3 whole minutes, but what do you do with the 0.85? Well, there's 60 seconds in a minute, so multiply that by 0.85 and you get 51 seconds. So you'll develop the 13th roll for 3 minutes and 51 seconds. Like I said, I've successfully used this little 2%er rule for like hundreds of rolls of film. And yeah, maybe some of my color film isn't perfectly scientifically developed. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide how precious you want to be about your photos and how often you want to waste money on fresh chemicals to chase perfection. I mean, if you really want perfection, just shoot digital. And while analog photographers tend to be pretentious artsy-fartsy types, I'm willing to bet you are a pretty chill guy because you're still watching this video. Since you're still here, you might as well like, comment, subscribe, ring all the notification bells and all that stuff. I mean, it's free, it only takes a second, and it really helps me out. This content thing ain't paying the bills yet. Anyway, if you want to know what to do after you develop your film, I got videos on scanning and archiving film, so go check those out next. Thank you, Internet. I'm Nick. Hey, I made it through. How long did that take? 2.5 hours. I could have watched it. I could have been done with Lord of the Rings Part 1 by now. Join LoPresti Army. It's the best way to help the channel, and you get your name down here at the bottom like Spencer. Don't you want to be cool? It's the best way to help. Go to madebylopro.com and give what you can today to make analog fun again. If you're still here, say PhotoFlow in the chat. I really appreciate you guys so much. I'm going to a Beers and Cameras thing in Austin. Look it up. See you guys there. I got to get a lot of videos done so I can go do that. Anyway, talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye. Auf Wiedersehen.